we think about it in the scriptures, Jesus being filled with emotion, these are some of the examples in the Gospels that I think about. At one point, Jesus is sitting across the Kidron Valley looking over Jerusalem, and the scripture says that he wept. He wept as he looked across into the people who lived in Jerusalem, because he had this profound awareness that the people of Jerusalem, even though God in himself as the Messiah, they were not recognizing him, they were not accepting him, they were not receiving him. And so he wept at their lost opportunity. Another time in the scriptures that I think is very powerful is the death of his good friend Lazarus, a brother to Mary and Martha. And we see in John's Gospel that he dies. And before that, because Jesus was in another place preaching, he was sent a message to come and be with Lazarus, who was sick. When he said, no, I'm not going to go, and I want to be this an opportunity where they will see the power of God being manifest, as Jesus already knows he's going to raise him from the dead. But in Jesus' humanity and divinity, when he finally goes, and he's with Mary and Martha and those who are grieving the loss of Lazarus, he's overcome with emotion. He weeps. He weeps. He is moved with compassion because people are so filled with loss. Another time I think about Jesus filled with emotion is that when he's actually on the cross and he is suffering a pain and a suffering that we can't possibly imagine. Of course, some of you may in your own lives. As he cries out to his Father, says, Father, why have you abandoned me? Even for a couple brief moments, perhaps minutes, he feels that in his own suffering, he's alone to face it himself. Why I talk about these particular memories of Jesus' life and his great emotion, because Jesus was always caught in the middle of suffering and pain. Very often the pain and suffering of those he was called to serve, those he healed, but those he did not. And then his own suffering, his own pain. But I think what we find most profoundly in all of those gospel stories is that the person who suffers pain so acutely, when they know that they are not alone in that pain and suffering, there is an element of peace and healing and encouragement that comes from the heart, which helps us to get through those moments in our lives. This month of March, this time during the season of Lent, we're going to be hearing about pain and suffering. We're going to be experiencing it ourselves. We're going to be suffering for those who are in pain, our loved ones. And perhaps each of us in our own pain, even if it's isolation, not necessarily physical, but emotional, it's pain that God in Jesus is profoundly aware of. And if we invite him, and if we ask him to be close to us, he is closer to us in every experience of our pain and suffering, and he can bring us even some sweetness and perseverance and hope in the midst of that. As we come to know Jesus during this season of Lent, and as he desires for a deeper relationship with us, especially those who are in pain and suffering, for whatever reason, whatever the source might be, he wants to be there for you. He wants to be there for me. So let him be a source of strength, of hope, of healing, of encouragement, of peace. Because the Lord desires that for each one of us. He desires that for you. God bless you.